Yo guys, how's it going? In today's video we're going to look at how I created 3 different bassline drops. So what we're going to do is go through each track and go through the drums, the bass, the effects and the vocals and how it all gets put together to make a complete track. Before we get into the video, a lot of the samples that have been used in this video are available on my website. There's a link in the description to the website. It's arcnade.com and I've just released a bassline drums pack and a serum preset pack. Let's get into the video. The first tune we're going to look at is called Skanking Crew. This is what it sounds like. So let's look at the drums first. If we take everything but the kick and the clap out, what we've got is a kick drum layered with another kick drum. So the lows of the kick drum with the highs of a kick drum. And then we've got a very light clap going over the top. And then we've got a hi-hat, a layered hi-hat, and then further down is just loads of different percussion elements. So we've got snare, crashes, and then loads of little percussive elements that you can barely hear. And then effects here and a riser at the end of the section. Now all these drum samples are available on my website in the Bassline drums sample pack. So if you want these exact samples, then make sure to grab that. So that's the drums for this one. And then we've also got a reload sound as an effect. I don't know why it's on the bass channel, but it just is. And then we've got the bass. Now I've actually gone into a video on how to make this exact bass and the sub. I'll put it on the screen right now if you want to check that out. So we won't go too much into that. And I've also got a video on how I did the side chaining with Shapeboxer, which I'll leave on the screen now as well if you want to check that out. So all it is a serum bass and a serum sub, and then I've created a pattern like this. And then the final section of the drop is vocals. Vocals are really important, I believe, for bass music. It gives the track energy that it wouldn't normally have. So listen here. No vocals. And these vocals were just from Splice. They've just had some little bits and bobs processing on them, and then some delay on them as well on this one. I recommend using a lot of delay in your tracks on vocals where you can, because it makes it sound so cool. One thing to note about this tutorial here is listen to the drums on each track I go through and listen to how different they are. So this bass here only really complements these kinds of drums here. If I was to put this bass on the drums in track 2 and track 3, it wouldn't work. So drums selection with the bass is really important, and it's really hard to get right. And what I've tried to do in this drums pack that's on my website is have like a huge variety of different drums, so that one type of drum will work with one type of bass. And that's what I try and do on different tracks as well. I don't always use the same drums, so I can experiment with different types of sounds. Right, moving on to the second tune. Now the next track we're going to look at is One Feather with Dynascope. And for the drop on this one, I took a bit of a different approach with the bass. So if we play the drums, they're a bit more in the lower frequencies, the kick drum and the clap, especially the kick drum. It's very simple, these drums. There's a lot less percussion than the last one because it's a rolling bass. So we've just got the kick, the clap, hats, and then we've got this little percussive element here. And that just keeps the track going. So if I'm to play it without the percussion, and with the percussion, in my opinion, it just makes it sound a lot more flowing. Now let's look at the bass. We've got our sidechain here and then our bass below it. So this bass is actually a sample that I found. I believe it was on Splice. So if I take all the plugins off, it sounds like this. Then I've grabbed the bits I like, chopped it up. It sounds like that, but then what I've done is gone through with post-processing to make it sound like this. And that sounds way different to the original sample. And how I've done this is with OTT, FabFilter Saturn, Trash 2, and I believe that's everything. Then we've just got our Pro L on the bottom and our sidechain. So it's mostly this Trash 2 element here. And then at the end of it, we've just got this horn sample, which I've again just put some distortion on, compression. And then you've got a quite unique sounding tune there. So it's worth finding bass sounds and trying to add loads of plugins to them to get some cool sounding basses. So not everything has to be through Serum, although most of the time you'll get the best sounds through there. Occasionally you can get some crazy sounds just by resampling stuff and applying different types of plugins. And then of course we've got vocal sample again. This was also from Splice. If you dig deep enough on Splice you can find some absolute golden things. And then we've just got the main vocal.
I see the one for the
and then we've applied different types of post-processing to it, which is here. I won't go into detail on that. And then yeah, we've just chopped it up to make it fit in with the bass. That's basically just trial and error to get the best sounding positions for the vocals. And if I remember correctly, it took me ages to find the right vocals for this track. I just kept trying loads of different vocals and repeating it until I finally got something that sounded good. So yeah, that's pretty simple for this track. Let's move on to the final track. Before I get into the last track, I just want to mention that in the previous track, notice how I didn't use a sub bass separately from the main bass. I did try and do this originally, but it sounded worse than when it was just all in one bass. So contrary to popular belief, you don't always have to use a sub bass with a bass. There are exceptions to the case, as shown in that last track. Most of the time you do use a sub bass though. It's just something to keep in mind. Right, now moving on to Body Gyal. This track just came out on my EP Nuclear on Crewcast. I'll leave a link down below if you want to go check out the EP, but let's go through the drop. This is what it sounds like.
Good body, girl, where your body look tight. Body look. Good body, girl, where your body look tight. For me and you, up inside this dance here tonight.
Excuse my CPU having a moment there. So these are the drums. As you can see, super simple. These drums are also on my sample pack, the Bassline drum sample pack. But it's just a kick drum, a layered clap, hats, and then we've got this same percussion element that I used in the last track. I just copied and pasted it across because I really liked it. So that is the drums. Probably as simple Bassline drums as you can get, but it's effective. So let's look at the basses now. So this is a Massive plugin. If any of you use Massive, by the way, please leave a comment down below and I will happily make a tutorial on Massive. It's really good. It's probably slightly better than Serum, but it's way more complicated. So the bass, this is the bass without the post-processing. And then with the post-processing, we've got an OTT, FabFilter Saturn, another FabFilter Saturn, a Decimort with the XM high, another Decimort with the XM low, and then we've just got compression, our sidechain, and then a limiter. And of course, we then have our sub bass here. Whoa. So it is layered with a sub bass, which is on Serum. And notice here how the note doesn't start on the first step, it starts on the second step. And I've only found this out recently, but it actually adds more swing to the track. So listen to it if it was all the way to the end here. And now listen to it here. It just, in my opinion, sounds way better. So you can experiment with this. Try not always using the bass right at the start. Play around with it, see if you can get some swing in there to give it some groove. And then the bass at the end is another sample I found. So let's take this post-processing off. And I've just chopped it up, changed the pitch on the end one, and then post-processed it with a, oh, that OTT isn't on, with a Decimort. Oh, that's not a Decimort. What's going on? With a Trash. And then I've used compression and the same stuff as before. So you can probably see a pattern going on here. I've got my drums, got my bass, then I've got my vocal. And I've just put this in where I thought it sounded best. So notice here, when the whoop sound is playing, I have a little vocals on. But then when this sustained bass is playing that's very low pitched, the vocals fit quite nicely over the top of it, so I have all the vocals playing there. And that has worked really well with this tune. And then in terms of effects, just got basic effects. a siren sound, a bubble sound, and then we've got this vocal bit at the end in the same key for a transition effect. One last tip I'd like to give you for how to finish the drop. So I always create, let's get into bars. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bars. This is the first section of the drop. So work on this first. And once this is finished, this whole section, copy and paste it to here, and then start varying it. So my variation here is very basic. All I've done is change the main bass pitch, and then I've copied and pasted it a third time, and then messed with the main bass again and barely changed anything else. And then it goes back into the breakdown. So structure wise, I would always follow that format for drops. It keeps it simple, makes it easy to process in your head and to finish tracks as well. So that is everything for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments. If you want to check out my website, arcnade.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take it easy.